Parenting Junkie.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Parenting Junkie, the place to go to love parenting and for parenting from love. Today, in response to a bunch of different questions from you guys, I wanted to talk about our bedtime routine and just some tips and tricks that I've heard from other people that work for them as well. So for a lot of us, bedtime is a stressful time. It's a time when we're exhausted and our kids are exhausted, and it's hard to just get them to unwind and go to sleep. And sometimes it takes hours, and sometimes it's very erratic. And this, you've got to find what works for you and your child, and none of this is dogmatic at all, but I'll share with you what works for us. I go for a very early bedtime for my kids. My kids are always asleep by 7. And that is because they wake up early, and they wake up early regardless of the time they go to sleep. And it's also because I just feel that is the best time for them to go to sleep. Often it's even 6:30 or 6. And I'm not at all afraid of putting them to bed at 5:30 if I see that they're really overexhausted, and they generally still sleep till the same time in the morning. I think that many children today are sleep deprived, and actually sleep deprivation is a huge root cause of a lot of behavioral problems that we are not addressing. I think kids need a lot more sleep than many of us realize. And of course, adults do too. But to me, the win here is twofold. My kids get a good night's sleep this way, and I get some adult time in the evening, which I really enjoy and need. So it works for us. So if bedtime is a very difficult time for you, really consider the timing. Is it just getting too late? Another thing is that kids often start getting hungry at bedtime because too much time has passed since dinner. So make sure that dinner is close enough to bedtime if possible. And if that means that your kids shouldn't be snacking all afternoon so that they'll eat a proper nourishing dinner, then consider making that change as well. There is a very clear link between eating and sleeping well. As we see with babies. So in order to make sure kids are able to unwind and able not to wake up too early in the morning or throughout the night, we want to make sure that hopefully they've been nourished enough and close enough to bedtime. On the other hand, it's good to kind of try to limit fluid intake towards bedtime and have as much fluids going on in the morning and less closer, 2 hours before bed, so that they don't need to pee, and that can also, disrupt bedtime. To me, bedtime actually starts about 2 hours before bed. So from about 5 o'clock, we say goodbye to any play dates, or we leave wherever we are and we come home. I think those 2 hours before bedtime, when my kids get to play and unwind and we get to do things slowly, is a critical and key element to why bedtime is a smooth and pleasant experience for all of us. I think that they absolutely need to unwind just like I do before I go to sleep. So we will usually really make an effort to be home 2 hours before we expect them to be in bed. And then we'll usually do dinner, followed by bath, followed by reading and just hanging out a little bit in their room and in their quiet zone, and then bedtime. So dinner is dinner. One thing that you might want to look at is which foods keep people awake, especially if your kids are sensitive to specific foods. It's not something I know enough about, but it's a good point to consider if your child is having trouble sleeping. And what I've read is that magnesium is something that is really helpful in getting a good night's sleep. And apparently we're all lacking in magnesium because it's been depleted in the soil. So you might want to consider the option of adding a magnesium drink to their dinner if that's something that suits your health and dietary philosophy. We don't use a magnesium drink. My kids don't like it, but we do add Epsom salt, which has magnesium, into their bath, a couple of cups of that into their bath at night. So bath time is a very crucial time because water play and just being immersed in warm bubbly water is very soothing. So we almost never skip bath. My kids sit in the bath, they play. If they are manic and overtired and splashy, then we cut it short. It needs to be a soothing time. But usually they're sitting and playing and enjoying the water. And sometimes I really try and go all out. So I'll put in the salt and I'll also put on candles. And this is kind of a tip from Simplicity Parenting, where candlelight and low lights can be really soothing and just give that kind of safe, cozy feeling. So we love to light a couple of candles, make sure they're not toxic and that they have, you know, only natural materials. And so we light a couple of candles, switch off the lights, they're in the bath. Yes, of course, it's a fire hazard, so take precautions there as well. My kids love to blow them out. And we add the salts. Sometimes we'll do bubbles as well. And then if you also want to add in a couple of aromatherapy essential oils that are safe for children, such as lavender, into the bath. Apparently a lavender is a scent that really is soothing and induces sleep. Some people put some on their children's pillows or get a lavender scented shampoo. These are all things that are soothing. You also want to be talking in a soothing voice at this time. And just keep everything very calm and low. Telephones should be off. No phone calls at this time. No distractions. Certainly no screens on. In fact, it's a great idea to limit any screen use 2 hours before bed because the light of the screen actually make you more alert and awake and don't help you to wind down. We have found this app called Sleep Genius, and from what I've read, it makes more sense than a white noise machine. We were using a white noise machine for a long time, but I read an article, which I'll try and post below, which explained that white noise actually induces stress in the brain because the noise is repetitive and the brain doesn't recognize it as an organic sound. But certain types of music or natural sounds are soothing. So that's why we like this app called Sleep Genius. I leave my phone on with this music from bath time all the way through to them sleeping, and sometimes all the way through to the morning to keep them asleep a little bit longer. I find it a little bit annoying to hear the music again and again every single night, but on the other hand, the repetition creates a signal for your kids, kind of a Pavlovian response that they always know that when they hear that music, they get sleepy. Now, you might want to be singing a lullaby or playing a different kind of CD, whatever it is, but soothing music can be really powerful sleep inducer. On the subject of triggers, you can also consider using some trigger words or trigger conversations that you always have around this time. So this is something that we like to do, let's say at dinner and in the bath. There are certain things that we always talk about. At dinner, we always ask, what was your favorite thing of the day? What was your least favorite thing of the day? What was something that you're thankful for, or someone who you want to send thanks to? And these little rituals are very helpful to children, kind of like signposts showing them what stage we're at and what's going to happen next, especially if they are repetitive and if they can rely on them happening almost every day. Once they're out of the bath, we'll go into their room where the lights will be low and we'll sit in their quiet zone. For more on the quiet zone, see my video about place-based design. And we'll read a book, 2 books, sometimes 5 books, depending on the amount of time we have and depending on how tired they are. Even when you read the book should not have any violence or anything too exciting. Try and think of soothing books. Try and read them in a soothing tone. In fact, there are some books that are specifically designed to induce a sleepy state. For example, this book, The Rabbit Who Wanted to Sleep, which I found actually really did make my kid very sleepy, because it has words that are kind of hypnotic, and it has indicators for the parent to yawn, to be very soft with your body, to talk slowly. These are things that really help a child to calm down. Generally, I think consistency and predictability are key to having a good bedtime and a good bedtime ritual, and sound sleep, but also creating a soothing environment using the light, the scents, the aromas, the sensuality that's going on in the room is really going to help your child to wind down. And reading books has definitely been proven to be something that is a very soothing and great activity before bed. One more thing is to consider having designated pajamas. Most people do. Designated pajamas, designated blanket, designated books perhaps for reading time. Anything that signals that this is for bed. Some people have a pacifier only in bed or a teddy bear only in bed. And those are things that can really help your child just feel that security. And some kids need to sleep with a night light. They like to have a little light on, so make sure that's a low and warm light happening so that it's not too stimulating and keeping them alert. Did you like this video? I really hope you did, and if you did, it would be absolutely wonderful if you can share it with anyone who you think it might be helpful to. I'd love to hear about your bedtime routine and what works for you, and the best place to have that conversation is over at theparentingjunkie.com, so head on over there now and leave a comment. I love to hear from you guys. It would mean the world to me if you subscribe to the channel. Keep on loving parenting and parenting from love, because your kids need you almost as much as you need them. Bye.
The Parenting Junkie.